This month marked 40 years since Richard Nixon resigned as commander-in-chief amid the Watergate scandal that, of course, rocked this nation. Now, Nixon faced impeachment by Congress and a conviction by the Senate. And former Connecticut Governor, then Senator Lowell Weicker, served on the Senate Watergate Committee, created, of course, to investigate the Watergate burglaries and the scandal as a whole. And I'm very pleased to be joined right now by former Governor and Senator Lowell Weicker from Connecticut. Thank you so much for the time, sir. I appreciate it.
Richard, my pleasure.
First of all, not to date you here, but does it feel like 40 years?
Well, it seems like a long time ago, I know that, but I think I pretty much have moved past Watergate into a lot of other things that I accomplished in the Senate and then later as governor. So it's a ways back.
Going back, when the committee was set up and you and the other 6 colleagues from the Senate, did you ever think it was going to result, forget about impeachment and the resignation of the president, did you think that's where this all would have led?
No. As a matter of fact, when we started off, I very much believed in Richard Nixon himself and his innocence in the matter. And I sort of had to teach myself as I ran across the facts that things weren't as they should be.
You know, some said it was one of the darkest days in American politics, but I noticed you said it was a great moment in American democracy, even with all the pain and the angst that went attached to it, because it proved, I guess, that at the end of the day, nobody's bigger than the American public. Isn't that right?
Well, I think that's true, and I think that you've got to put yourself back in that time when nobody contested a president of the United States or even a senator of the United States or a congressman. People were not used to the fact that they could question their elected officials.
I'm curious, if he destroyed the tapes, how would this have changed, or do you think it would have changed at the end of the day?
I don't think it would have changed anything. As a matter of fact, I had written my report before the tapes were released, and I'd say that my report covered about 98% of what happened.
You know, one of the things that, and I went back and I saw some of the tapes of the hearings, and it was a lot harder, it seemed then than now, to tell who the Republican or the Democrat was. You know, if you closed your eyes and you, I guess, got rid of the Southern twang, you and Howard Baker were both in it seemingly for the same purpose here, and also obviously and the other Democrats in the committee as well. My point being, it's such a departure from today in terms of the partisanship. It's not just my imagination, is it?
No, it's not your imagination. In those days, Republicans and Democrats worked together. We had our differences, but I'd say about 10% of the time, you know, we went to combat each other. The rest of the time we tried to work things out. And I'm not talking just about the Watergate Committee, I'm talking about legislation in general. Probably at the end of the day, after you got through arguing on the floor, we'd settle down and have a drink and try to see if there was some common ground we could agree on. I mean, those days are gone forever. And the country is the one that suffers because, quite frankly, number one, you want 2 parties, so you do want attention there, but you don't want that tension to be so great that it brings everything to a halt, and that's where we stand right now.
But there certainly seems to be an absence of guys like you, moderates in the Republican Party, who had a place, you know, under the whole Reagan Big Ten philosophy. They're vanishing if a non-existent breed today.
Well, don't forget the moderate wing of the Republican Party has been completely wiped out. The Republican Party today is a religious right, southern rural party, and therefore that's the reason why it can't win as many elections as it should. Right here in my own state of Connecticut, we have a one-party system. There's been no Republican control of either house nor the governorship for a long time, and that proves the point that I'm making, that we don't relate here in Connecticut to the demographic that is Connecticut, which is blue-collar, cities, large minorities, poor. I mean, I go down the checklist, and certainly women which is a major problem for the Republicans. So, yeah, until the party gets its act together and has an appeal across the board, I'm afraid they're going to go ahead and be irrelevant, and that's not a good thing.
You know, one of the things I saw you say was interesting is part of a problem is you got a lot of people in Washington now who haven't paid their dues, who didn't go up through the ranks. I mean, you were a town selectman before you were a state representative, before you got in the House, before you got to the Senate, and obviously the stop at governor as well. But a lot of folks come on one platform issues and get to Washington, they have no concept, you know, on how you make the hot dog here and how the process is supposed to work.
So you're absolutely right. Coming through the chairs is important, but out of fairness, even to them, very few people in the United States want to serve.
Finally, do you think this is a cyclical problem? We're going to get past this, or is there just so much cynicism right now attached to public service, attached to obviously what we're seeing play out in Washington every day, that this is going to be a really hard problem to break, because there seems to be little incentive for the minority party to work with the majority party, and in many ways vice versa?
Well, it's not a question, you know, can we allow it to continue? It's got to end if you want to have a United States of America. The best suggestion I have for people when it comes to public service is think about what you'd like to do. Think about something that you think is lacking out there and go for it. Because nobody has more power than those at the federal and the state level. So if you want to make it come true, run for office.
Mr. Weicker, I really appreciate a few minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And up next, everyone, we turn our attention overseas, where Israeli airstrikes have killed 3 senior Hamas leaders in Gaza, as obviously the ceasefire has ended. Now, after the break, I'll be speaking with Ambassador Ido Aharoni. He is Consul General of Israel in New York.